This was brought to you by the Storyteller on YouTube and Facebook.
Jack goes back to school. After many years, Jack had grown very old. He had a family. His wife had died, and he came to live with his youngest daughter in a little cottage by the roadside. She had 5 or 6 little children. And these children loved their grandfather, old Jack, very, very much. They sat in his lap, and he told them stories. He told them about how he'd spent his entire life, how he'd met his wife, and how he had traveled all over the world, how he'd met goblins and elves. And every night was a different story. These children were enthralled with old Jack, with Granddad's stories. He put them to sleep every night in bed. And his daughter Mary, she loved her father. Her husband said, "Look, we didn't need to worry as long as he's with the children." And sometimes the children fell asleep in his lap by listening to his stories. But in these bygone days there were no cars on the road. It was all horses and carriages. But where he lived, Jack's son-in-law, Mary's husband, was a woodcutter. And he went out to cut wood every day. And old Jack, he said to himself, while his son-in-law was at work, and the children were in school, he would work in the garden. He would tidy up the garden and grow vegetables. He was more than 80 years old, and he was still Jack. But one day he was working in the garden when, lo and behold, he saw a coach, 4 horses and a coach, passing by. And he saw something falling from the coach. The horses drove on. He stepped out the garden, and he walked out to the road. It was a rough old road in these bygone days. And lo and behold, there was a handbag, a permanently they called it in these days, a carrying bag. It's lying in the road. Jack picked it up. It was heavy. He opened it up. It was full of money. He carried it back. He took it in. His daughter was busy working in the kitchen. He went up to his bedroom, and he hid it under his bed. Jack rubbed his hands together. He said, "I've got golden sovereigns forevermore. Nobody's going to get them from me. I'm still Jack." Now, he had a plot in his head. He said to himself, "Look, I know where it's come from. This is the tax collection, people collecting the taxes around the town, and the country." And it fell off the coach. "But," he said, "it's mine." Now, Jack being Jack, he wanted to know how in the world he could come to keep this money. So, being Jack, he got an idea in his head. All day he sat in his room, and he thought about it. And then the children came back from school that day. The laddies and lasses, they all gathered round grandfather as usual, and they said, "Grandad, tell us a story, tell us a story." He said, "I'll tell you a story." He told them stories past the common till they fell asleep. But the next morning at breakfast time he said to his daughter, "Mary, my lassie, I'm going back to school." She says, "Dad, you canna go back to school." He says, "I'm going back to school, this morning I go. Give me a pair o' scissors." She says, "What are you wanting scissors for, Dad?" He says, "To clip my trousers short." She says, "Dad, have you gone crazy?" "No," he said, "I'm no going crazy. Give me a pair of scissors." He got a pair o' scissors, and he clipped his trousers above his knee. He said, "Weens, come here a minute, have you any old school bags lying about?" "Aye, Grandad," they said, "we have. There's 2-3 school bags there." He says, "Have you any books lying about you're no wanting?" "Aye, Grandad," they said. Mary said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going with the weens to school." "Oh no, Grandad," they said, "you canna go. I'm going with you to school today," he says. He cut the trousers short, put them on his legs. He got a bag from the weens, he got 2 books, he put the bag on his back, and he went with the weens. They walked to school, and he sat in the classroom with the weens in school. The teacher said, "What are you doing here, Jack?" "Aye," he said, "I'm back to school. I want to learn to read, same as the weens, learn to read." But anyway, he sat in the school all day with his short trousers on, with his school bag and his books. And he sat with the weens for one day in the school. But he walked back with the weens that night, and he told them stories. He did everything, put his bag away. And the next morning he was out in the garden as usual. The weens were off to school. He never went back to school anymore. Only one day he had gone to school. But sure and behold, he's in the garden close to the road when what should come driving up, but another coach. 2 men and their long hats and batons hanging down by their pockets. They pulled in. They stopped the coach by the side of the road. They came and said, "Old man, you're busy." "Well," Jack said, "I'm busy." "Well," one said, "you know who we are. We're the justices of the peace." "Oh," he said, "I see, I can see by your coats, and your tails, and your batons, you're justices of the peace." "The problem is, old man," they said, "the problem is we want to talk to you. The coach passed here 2 days ago. And we have lost a permanently with a lot of money. It fell off the coach. Have you by any chance seen it?" "Oh," Jack said, "that's true. I saw it." "Oh, you did," they said. "Oh," the one looked to the other, "You seen it?" Jack said, "I." He said, "Have you any idea where it is?" "Well," he said, "I saw it. Let me see now." The 4 horses and coach passed by. "It fell off and I picked it up. I carried it up, and I put it alow my bed." "That's good enough," said the 2 men, "we have the right person. We've got him, right. Do you still have it?" "Oh," he said, "I still have it." "But," one says, "when did this happen?" "Well," he says, "wait a minute now. It was the day afore I went to school." He said, "Old man, what do you mean?" Jack said, "The day afore I went to school." He said, "How old are you, old man?" "Well," he said, "I'll be 86 on my birthday. Come my birthday, I'll be 86. And they said, "When did you pick up the bag with the money?" "Well," he says, "The day before I went to school I picked up the bag." And one justice says to the other, "Look, come on, let's stop wasting our time with a silly old fool." And they drove on. And Jack was left with the bag of money. He shared it with his wee daughter, and they lived happy ever after.
This was brought to you by the Storyteller on YouTube and Facebook. Listen to our podcast on any of these platforms: Anchor, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, RadioPublic, Spotify. Support us on Patreon. And check us out on Discord. All the links can be found in the video description below. We thank you for your participation. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. We love feedback.